Let's talk about filling the swamp. Oh, I'm sorry. It's supposed to be draining the swamp, but it's actually getting filled, not drained. Contrary to what Donald Trump promised time and again during his campaign, he continues to fill the swamp. Trump is filling top positions at the Departments of Defense, Homeland Security, and the State Department with defense contractors and their lobbyists, people from companies who are paid to manufacture things like weapons and vehicles for the U.S. government. This is the heart of that term made famous by President Dwight Eisenhower, the military-industrial complex. Those at the heart of the military-industrial complex are making themselves or are being made official parts of Trump's administration. Not only is it a clear conflict of interest, which is par for the course with Trump, par for the course has a whole new meaning actually now that we know that how much Donald Trump is playing golf. It's almost funny to use that term, par for the course, when talking about Trump.
I wonder how good he is at golf. It doesn't strike me as much of a golfer.
I heard he's terrible. Yeah, I heard he's terrible. We've got Ivanka in the White House. We've got the Exxon CEO and friend of Russia, Rex Tillerson, in the State Department. And the White House announced just a couple of days ago that Donald Trump has appointed, let's just go through the list. Benjamin Cassidy is now the Secretary of Legislative Affairs at the State Department. Cassidy was a senior executive at Boeing, recipient of huge big league government contracts. Donald Trump has named Jonathan Rath Hoffman as the Department of Homeland Security's Assistant Secretary of Public Affairs. Where did he previously work? The Chertoff Group. That's the Homeland Security consulting firm, connected, by the way, to Michael Chertoff, Bush administration official, responsible for getting the Department of Homeland Security to put in those really expensive porno scanners that the TSA uses in airports. Pat Shanahan. It's been a while since I said porno scanner. It is. Sometimes I crack myself up. Pat Shanahan was appointed by Donald Trump as Deputy Secretary of Defense. Shanahan was a vice president at Boeing who ran none other than the company's missile building division, a business executive with no government or military experience. The nominee for Trump's Deputy Secretary of DHS is Elaine Duke, who consulted for a number of defense contractors, including the Columbia Group, which manufactures these things called unmanned drones. And then you have Heather Wilson, who's been nominated to be the head of the Air Force, a former Lockheed Martin consultant. She was in charge of maintaining Lockheed's $2.4 billion a year contract to build and research nuclear weapons and keep the contract closed to competition. This is just a sampling. There's actually a minimum of 15 officials with financial ties to defense contractors who have now either been nominated or appointed by Trump to some of these positions in Washington. Some people might not realize that Secretary of Defense Mattis and Secretary of Homeland Security Kelly, who were primarily paid by defense firms, their background, Mattis is associated with the military, but also someone who was paid by defense firms before joining their cabinet level positions. So I don't know what it means to drain the swamp, Pat, but I'm pretty sure that this isn't draining the swamp.
It's a revolving door. It sure is. I mean, I think most Trump supporters look the other way, though, because they think, well, there's not politicians in these major roles now. It's people like the financiers, the oil tycoons, the people who actually are in the military-industrial complex. So they see that as an improvement.
Trump is actually calling for a budget that would make perfect sense if you're filling the swamp with these types of people. Trump is calling for $54 billion in added military spending next year, a $30 billion budget increase for the DOD and DHS for this fiscal year. And guess what? Roughly half of that $30 billion is planned to be spent on new military equipment. Trump was going to drain the swamp, crack down on the lobbyists. Not only isn't he doing that, the lobbyists are joining government. I would love to just have a Trumpist call in and explain to me how the revolving door is revolving so fast that it's flying off of its hinges and the swamp is overflowing with the lobbyists Trump said wouldn't be part of his administration. You can discuss this with us on our Reddit discussion forum, davidpakman.com/REDDIT. Next, the conclusion to my interview with the great Lawrence Krauss. Today's sponsor is Movement Watches at mvmtwatches.com/Pakman. I've been wearing a Movement watch for several months now, as you can see here. And people love it. Everywhere I go, it attracts attention, and people say, that's a really cool, clean looking watch. What kind of watch is that? And very often the next question is, how much does it cost? And that actually relates to the two broke college kids that started Movement watches. They would go to department stores and see watches they liked, and then realize the price tags were upwards of $400 or $500, not really affordable. So they created a watch line in Movement watches, which not only has the great designs that they liked and wanted, but the watches start at just $95 because they sell online. They cut out the middle people and are able to sell watches starting at just $95. And for viewers and listeners of the David Pakman Show, you can go to mvmtwatches.com/Pakman. That will get you 15% off the watch of your choice, plus free shipping and free returns. Okay, so once again, mvmtwatches.com/Pakman, free shipping, free returns, and 15% off the watch of your choice.